Welcome to Private Club Radio, your weekly source for industry education, news and discussion. Broadcasting from Tampa, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Gabriel Aloisi.
Wow, it's good to be back here on Private Club Radio with you. Wasn't sure this was going to happen last week this time when Hurricane Irma was staring us straight in the face. If you heard last week's episode, you probably heard there was no intro, no outro to the show because I was scrambling Sunday night just to get a show up for you on Monday. And we got so lucky here. Other places didn't get spared like Tampa, but right at the last second, the hurricane veered east and didn't hit us as hard as we thought it was going to be. It only hit here as about a Category 1 storm. If it was a Category 3 or a 4, it would have been devastating. But as it stood, other than a day without power and a couple tree branches down and some slight damage to a fence of mine, we really came out pretty much unscathed, and I'm so grateful for that. But people down in Naples did not get so lucky. People down South Florida, with all the flooding you saw in Miami, they've got a lot of cleanup to do down there. And our thoughts and prayers are with those clubs as they are with the ones still recovering from Harvey in Texas. So if you have a club and can do anything for some of these clubs that were affected so hard by the storm, please help in any way you can. One way you can do that, the National Club Association is setting up a fund to help those clubs in the Texas Lone Star chapter of the CMAA. Go to nationalclub.org. Henry Wallmeyer is leading those efforts to provide some relief to those clubs and some help. Anything you can do would be greatly appreciated, I'm sure. But like I said, it's great to be here with you. Once again on Private Club Radio, have an interesting guest for you, something a little bit different. We'll be joined today by Brian Weber. He's a head bartender at a private club in Hudson Valley, New York, and he's the creator and host of the Bartender Journey podcast, which is a really cool show that you should check out right after you're done listening to Private Club Radio today. And we're going to talk about all sorts of trends and fun things happening in a bar and how you can really raise the experience at your club in the bar area where so much socializing takes place and people spend so much of their time. So I really think it's an area that we should focus on here on this show. Brian reached out to me and said I could share some tips and things with your listeners. I said, yes, come on, we'd love to hear that. So really looking forward to this interview. Without further ado, here is my interview with Brian Weber. My guest today is Brian Weber. He's the bartender at the Tuxedo Club in the Hudson Valley, and he's also the creator and host of a very entertaining podcast called the Bartender Journey podcast. Brian's hospitality career began at 14 as a dishwasher, making $15 a night. Over the years, he worked as a line cook, a server, a bartender, manager, and eventually head chef of a Manhattan restaurant by 23. After a brief respite in Hawaii, Brian pursued his second passion, audio production, landing in a New York City recording studio. In 2008, the financial crisis shut down the studio, and undeterred, Brian once again pivoted, working as a freelance audio engineer, and then returned to professional bartending. In 2013, Brian merged his passions for bartending and audio production, and the Bartender Journey podcast was born. The podcast led to a rabbit hole of industry conferences, trainings, distillery tours, and certifications. Bartending at the Tuxedo Club, Brian has brought his take on craft cocktails, spirits, education, and hospitality. And he's going to share some of that wisdom with us today on Private Club Radio. Brian, welcome to PCR.
Thank you, Gabe. Great to be here. I'm just shaking you up a cocktail here.
I am a old-fashioned man on my end.
Oh, okay.
Good old-fashioned. There's a bar in Manhattan called Bo's. Have you been there?
Yes, I have.
Oh, man, they make some incredible cocktails there.
Yeah, they are kind of famous for their old-fashioned.
Yeah, it's a good one. So the bar scene at any club is really just a hub of activity. Apart from the obvious, why do you think that is, Brian?
I just always feel like it's the heart of the club or a restaurant or whatever. You know, it's just where everybody gravitates to. You know, what is it that the golfer looks forward to the entire time he's out in the course, right? Where do they go as soon as they're done with 18? Where do old diners go before they go to the formal dining room? They go to the bar. You know, so. And I think the bartender really has a great finger on the pulse of the membership. They engage with the members in a different way. I think there's a opportunity for a different kind of relationship, a little maybe less formal than a server, say. And it's interesting. There's a gentleman named Dale DeGroff who's sort of the godfather of our industry, and he really reinvented the craft cocktail. But that's another story. But he does this thing about how where a server approaches the table, and these people have sort of rented out that space for the evening, and then that's their space for the night. On the other hand, the guest or the member comes to the bar, and the bar is the bartender space. So it's a different relationship.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's, like I said, kind of becomes the hub of activity, and it's a place where people go have a drink before they have dinner or after a round of golf and whatnot. And so there's a lot of opportunities, I'm sure, that you see over there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of opportunity. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for improving bar programs. When I started at my club, I was surprised to see there was no cocktail menu whatsoever, and so it took a little time to gain trust of management and members, just to the point where I said, I'd love to make up a menu, and what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, and I know, like at my club, the guys will come in, they'll have a cigar there, they buy their cigars there, their cigarettes, everything else, and it's just a place where a lot of stuff happens.
Yeah, it's like I said, where do people go when they need a cigar cutter, or they need a piece of paper to make a note, or they need to place a to-go order? I mean, in fact, in our golf clubhouse, I'd say about 65% of the lunches and 35% of the dinners are served in the bar room as opposed to the attached dining room. People just love that room. They love the vibe of it. And, it's more of a community in that room where, you can shout out to you can have conversations in between tables rather than in the dining room where that's a little strange sometimes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. The bartender at my club, I think, is the only person that knows my name other than the bag boys, because I tip them pretty well too. But what makes the bar a special experience, unlike what folks get from other parts of the club?
It's a place to let your hair down, and alcohol kind of lubricates that. But it's a community where people gather together, and unlike pool bar or something like that, where people are really, it's just a place to go get a drink and then go sit back down in your chair. The bar, well attended, and people just love being in that room, And I think, if we talk about business a little bit, you discussed on your show recently how it can be very challenging to make money from food at a club, because it's just sort of disjointed, and there's a lot of different things going on. And I think in the bar, you shouldn't have that problem, because you don't have the spoilage issues, and you don't. The staff is much smaller, and I think the members don't really seem to care how much they're paying for their drink. They just, as long as it's big and strong.
Yeah, right. That's the recipe for success, I bet.
I was shocked. This is the first private club I've ever worked in, and I was shocked to see the size of the highball glasses there. They're really big. Like, this wouldn't fly at your neighborhood bar, man.
Like those huge margaritas you see at the Mexican restaurants, huh? Well, let's talk about some of your tips on how to maximize bar profits. I know you've got some ideas out there for folks. Can you tell us a few of them?
Yeah. Well, I wrote down a bunch of trends in the bar business, and these are not necessarily profit centers, but they're trends in the business. And I think you need to keep up with this stuff, what's going on in the business, because what we're seeing is like the 50-somethings are not ordering old fashions and Negronis and Manhattans, where the 20-somethings are, because they're much more tuned into this, the craft cocktail movement, as we call it, and they go to fancy bars in the cities, and they see what's going on, and if you're going to keep bringing in younger members, I think you need to keep up with this stuff. So, trends in the bar business, fresh fruit juices is huge. Sour mix is out. Sour mix is just terrible stuff. I have not once.
I haven't had that since college, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you never know. If you order a margarita or a whiskey sour or a mojito, it may just be in there. It's artificial stuff. It's high fructose corn syrup, and the alternative to that is fresh citrus juice and simple syrup. So that's what it's trying to simulate, and it's not that hard to do, but the fresh juice has to be fresh. It really doesn't last more than 24 hours, fresh lemon and lime juice.
Yeah, like you said, people want to know where their ingredients are coming from. I think that's so important, especially for the millennials, the younger generations.
That's right, yeah, but it just tastes so much better. I use freshly squeezed lime juice. I squeeze it myself by hand every day, and simple syrup and a quality tequila and Grand Marnier in my margaritas, and people think I'm a genius. But like you said, people want to know the backstory of the ingredients, and just like food, local is big, and you can find local spirits almost anywhere in the United States these days. There's a lot of people. There's a misconception among some people that bourbon can only be made in Kentucky, right? It's not true at all. Here in the Hudson Valley, I could drive you to 3 different places making great bourbon within 45 minutes of our club.
Nucky Thompson's place, huh? Down there in Atlantic City.
Yeah, right. No, not like that at all. They're making great quality spirits all over the United States, and that feeds into the craft spirits, and they're small batch, and you can go there and meet the 2 or 3 guys that are making this stuff, and they're super proud of it, and they'll probably be happy to show you around and let you taste right out of the barrel, maybe, or and they're super proud of what they're doing, and if you do that as a bartender or a manager even, and you can tell the story of, this comes from place 35 minutes away from here. Have you never heard of it? It's a great place, and Tom makes it with his brother, and it was a farm that was in their family for 5 generations, and now the farm was failing. So these 2 guys figured out a way to keep this farm viable, and they made a great business out with making whiskey, and that's what you're drinking.
Yeah, sure. I got to imagine that you're not seeing a lot of Budweiser being consumed in our clubs, not at least like you used to. Is that correct?
Not so much Budweiser, but the big brand names are still there, and I've found it odd that in the club business you actually need to have you end up with a lot of beers, because this guy drinks this and that guy drinks that, and that's it, and we're like, wow, why do we have 12 of those just same common beers that you see everywhere? We don't need that many. What we'd love to have is more craft stuff, we end up keeping a lot of stuff in bottles, and then we do more interesting stuff on tap. So,
that's smart. Yeah, that's smart.
So yeah, cocktail menus I think is big. Maybe you'd know better than I. Is that common in clubs, in private clubs, for there to be cocktail menus, or?
It depends on the club, definitely, and the club culture. I think at least a lot of the clubs down this way, it's more about the wine and beer, but it just depends what part of the world you are. I know New York is huge on cocktails.
Yeah, well, the cocktail menu is something that the bartender, the head bartender, or the manager, or a consultant even, carefully curates a list of things that we're proud of, and things that we can keep on hand. Much like a food menu, these are things that we've we'll make you anything you like, but these are our suggestions and things we're proud of, and things that we suggest you give a try, and hopefully it's a little different than something you've had before, or maybe you had it at another club or whatever. But we're so close to New York City here that I think people expect to see it now. The younger people do anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, more trends. Craft beer, obviously, we touched on that a little bit, and that's huge. But and that feeds into the craft spirits as well. Classic cocktails. I mentioned Negronis, Manhattans, and Old Fashions are huge these days. But crafted cocktails that are non-classic, twists on classic, what people refer to as mixology type drinks are another big trend.
Yeah. Where's like a good starting point if you kind of had the same stuff in the bar for quite some time? Like, what's a good starting point, Brian, in terms of creating a new cocktail menu or figuring out what beers to have on tap or what wines to get?
Well, I think you could start with books. There's so many great books, and on my podcast, I do a book of the week every week, and I just encourage people to explore cocktail books. Especially, there's some great ones. Some of the great famous cocktail bars have put out books. The Dead Rabbit, you may have heard of. Canon cocktail book is excellent, and there's just a lot of different. I could put together a list maybe and offer to email it to people, because there's so many books that are just can really inspire you to just to try new things and see what's going on in the world. But another great resource, and people don't realize, is the your distributors should be able to help you with this. And more important than that, we have the 3-tier system, right? So so spirits, like almost every spirit you can imagine, Tanqueray and Beefeater and anything you can imagine probably has a brand ambassador, and depending on the budget, it may be regional or it may be just one for the whole country. But if you can contact these people, so they work directly for the brands. They're not salespeople. They're specifically just out there to educate consumers. We refer to as opposed to a professional bartender, you're the bartender or a consumer. So the consumer, either they're out there to offer education to consumers as well as bartenders and bar programs, and they may come in and help you out and do a staff training. They may do an event with you, and it's a great resource if you can just locate them. And
they a lot of times have their own signature cocktails and stuff and their own recipes. For instance,
exactly.
I know Bill Conwell is a listener of this show. He's a great listener and supporter, and he's got Pin High Spirits, and Pin High has their own signature cocktails that they provide recipes for and stuff like that. So there's so many resources out there. I hate to walk into a boring bar myself, and I bet you feel the same, Brian.
Oh yeah, but that's another subject. But the whole mixology thing kind of went over the top over the last couple of years, to where a lot of the fancy cocktail bars in the city just got to be I don't want to say this backlash exactly, but it got to the point where enough is enough with your fancy cocktail that takes 10 minutes to make and has 12 different ingredients, of which 8 of them I've never heard of before. We kind of want to go back to a bar where you have fun, and it's not so stuffy, and people are talking to each other and enjoying each other's company and the hospitality, rather than crazy fancy cocktails. So that's another big trend in the bar business over the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, let's get back into trends and talk about some other ones here on your list. You've got sustainability, which I know is a big one. Let me hear a little bit about that one, Brian.
It's huge. For the last 5 years, I've been going to an event called Tales of the Cocktail. It's a huge conference in New Orleans every year, and there's easily 80 or so seminars per year, and there's all kinds of events put on by brands and different things, and this year it was all about sustainability. Everybody's talking sustainability. Everybody's looking to reduce waste. Plastic straws are, just the devil in our industry right now, because they're used for 5 minutes and then they last for 10,000 years in the landfill, right? So, or some people stir their drink with it once and throw it on the bar or on the table, and it's a shame. So, I think to provide the hospitality that we want to, we need to offer it. But that's what I've been doing lately, is offering it. I moved the straws on the bar just like a full arm length away from where I usually make my drinks, and so I make sort of a big production. I reach my arm like way over, like care for a straw. So I give them the opportunity to say no, but of course I'll put it in there if they request it. And a lot of the ladies especially prefer it. So, but some people are going to paper straws, which are a little weird. They kind of fall apart. Not
they disintegrate probably in there.
Yeah, but there's compostable ones now too. They're made from corn or something, and they can actually, and they feel like real straws, and you can compost. But I think a great idea for clubs is composting, because there's so much food and waste that can be composted, and you have staff, you have grounds crew on staff, you have people that can do that kind of thing, and what if you take that compost and plant a bartender's garden, or an herb garden that the kitchen can use as well. And how cool is that? We're taking our waste, we're putting it in the ground, we're growing stuff right here on our grounds, and we're giving it back to you. I love that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that goes right along with modern consumers. We all want that green stuff. We want something that is sustainable. I think that's a great point right there. And a
And
lot of clubs
especially,
we've seen doing those gardens and things.
yeah. And especially in a club situation, because the members always say, this is our club, literally. This is our club, and this is our basil. I think it's great. I mean, it was like you were talking about in your bikini car wash episode with having hens, right? Chickens.
Yeah, Medina. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that idea too. That's
they got
great.
the fresh eggs and everything up there apparently. So it's a good time for sure.
Well, there's a similar idea,
Let's talk about like bottled or barreled draft cocktails, because I've seen that a lot in some higher end bars. And is that happening in the private club space as well?
Well, we haven't implemented that, but I think it's great for clubs, and I think it's great for high volume. You can really pump out a fancy drink quickly if you do it ahead of time, and I think it's a great thing. The barrel aged Negroni that was another one that kind of jumped the shark. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think you just have to be careful to take it out of that barrel after a certain amount of time so it doesn't get overdone. But for anybody who doesn't know, you can get a little barrel that's, I think, what are they, about 2 gallons or so. Mix up your Negroni, you put it in there, and it comes out tasting a little different. And then it's it's a fun story. It's sitting on the back bar, and people are like, "What is that?" "Oh, it's barrel aged Negroni. Would you like to try a little taste of it?" And you can, just like beer, you can offer a sample. The same with cocktails on draft, which is a little more complicated. You need some machinery there, and you need some equipment to do that. But it's great if you have 2, 3, 4 cocktails on draft. Again, you can offer taste. It's fast, and it's great for big events.
Sure.
If you're doing big events, it's fabulous. So
I love just like the ambiance that you get when you look at like a row of barrels and things back there. Just like it does beg the question, like, what's in there?
Right.
Just a conversation starter. I think those are cool.
I think so too, and I love doing stuff like that. And even getting new bottles on the bar, I'll always put them in a very prominent space where people can see, and they're like, "What is that?" And I say, "Oh, we just brought this in. It's great. You should try it. It's from Vermont, and whatever the story is." So it just makes going to the bar more fun and interesting. You find consumers are getting more, or people want to know more what they're drinking, and they want to hear the stories of it. And why not? It's fun.
Now, you mentioned events, so let's get into that a little bit, Brian. So if a club's looking for a unique event, the bar might be a great source for something fun and different. What successful events are you seeing take place at private club bars? Yeah,
well, I think everyone's seen in the last few years that weddings, everybody wants a signature cocktail, and I think if you're not doing that, you're offering your wedding a disservice. You should be offering that, absolutely. Punch is another great fun thing that's new, and not new. It's an old thing that's come back, and similar to the draft cocktails, you make it ahead of time, serve it out real quick, and you can make delicious punch that way. And I think, by the way, besides events, I think that's fun for a club, because a group of 2 or 3 couples get together and they order a bowl of punch and they all drink the same thing out of a bowl that you delivered to their table, and you bring them little teacups. I think that's a lot of fun. But what else at events? We did a great event. Well, we've done guest chefs before, right? So I go to the GM. I say, it'd be really fun if we did a guest bartender. It would be so fun. So I have a friend. Tom
Cruise, right? Coming in.
Yeah. Well, Flair. That's Flair. That's a whole different thing. So I brought in a friend of mine from the city who works at the Dead Rabbit, actually, which was named best cocktail bar in the world by a survey that comes out every year, world's top 50 bars or whatever. So anyway, we brought her in, and we did 3 special cocktails, and we did 3 action stations around the bar where we had chefs out in the room making food, and each cocktail was sampled with different food, and that was really well received, and people really enjoyed that.
That's nice. Any other event ideas that you think would be good for other clubs to consider doing?
Well, use your imagination. Tiki is a big thing in the bar business right now, and that can make a great event. What if you had cocktail classes? You had your bartender and whoever wanted to sign up, 10 or 12 people, all making 3 drinks. That would be fun. You could rent a bus and do a distillery tour. You can go to Mexico and do mezcal and tequila cocktails. There's Pisco is from Peru and Chile, and that's an interesting spirit that is still not very well known, but it's delicious.
I'll be drinking that tonight, believe it or not, because my brother-in-law is Peruvian, and he's always got about 20 different versions of Pisco that he forces on me during the soccer games we watch, which will be doing.
Oh, nice. Pisco sour?
Pisco sour, yeah, that's it, yeah, but no sour mix. Now I know, no sour mix.
No
juice.
Pisco, lemon juice, and simple syrup, and an egg white to make it frothy.
Yeah, and it's different. If people haven't tried it, it's worth the try for sure. How about speakeasy nights? I think that would be a fun event.
Yeah, speakeasy nights. That can be a lot of fun, and the members really get into that with fun costumes that they might wear, and that's a great one, definitely.
That's awesome, Brian. So let's get into education and things. Brian, where do you suggest your manager send their staff to further their education on running a successful bar?
Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff. The United States Bartenders Guild is an amazing resource for bartenders. Can't recommend it enough. There's chapters. So I belong to the New York City chapter, which is actually probably the most vibrant one. But there's I think there's about 80 of them around the country now, and it's an amazing resource, amazing place to you meet all the brand ambassadors, because the brand ambassadors are welcome to be members as well. So they come and like, where do you work, and what can we do together? Let's get some ideas together. And I think it's just a great resource. There's opportunities for trips. It was through the USPG that I took a trip to Mexico. Patron brought 25 bartenders down to their facility in Mexico, all expenses paid, to see how they make their tequila from farm to bottle. And that was an amazing experience. That's number one, the USBG, United States Bartenders Guild. There's this Bar Smarts is a great resource. There's an online component, so anybody can do it online, and it's like $40, I think. Well worth doing. And that's taught by, I mentioned Dale DeGroff, but there's about 4 or 5, 6 sort of godfathers that are like the rock stars of our industry, and they teach this thing. And so once you do that online component, you're welcome to join them for they travel around the country doing a 1-day in-person event where there's a education, tasting, and then a testing. Hands-on. You make 3 drinks for one of these guys, and you get certified. Yeah. That's really worth doing. Then beyond that, if you want to continue it, those 2 are extremely reasonable. But to go beyond that, they have a 5-day Bar Smarts 5-day, and that's like $6,000. But
wow, that might be a little much for most. Yeah, but it sounds good.
And then hopefully everybody knows about TIPS, TIPS, which is responsible serving training, and that's something you can do online or in person.
How about you've got some resources as well? I know you have a class, and you're actually offering our listeners kind of a special offer.
Oh, well, this is a friend of mine's class. I didn't produce this, but it's called a bar Above Mixology Certification, and that's all online. And if you use my discount code, you get 20% off of that. So that's just over $100 and less with the discount code Bartender Journey with no space. I hope managers listening to this will encourage their staff and hopefully offset the cost, or if not pay for all these things, because none of these things cost a ton of money. A lot of these are sponsored by brands. There's one called Cocktails in the Country, which is up here in the Hudson Valley, and a great guy named Gary Regan runs that. And it's just 10 bartenders for 2 days in the summertime. He does about 10 sessions, and it's just $250. So it's all your meals and your overnight stay and 2 days of education and fun. And it's supplemented by the brands, or it's sponsored by brands. So that's what keeps the cost down. Another one is Bar Methods. That just passed, but that's in late summer, and that's in New York City. It's 3 days of education, 2 nights hotel included, all your meals, events, classes, and it's like less than $200. I mean, you couldn't even stay in that hotel for 1 night for that. So it's it's supplemented or sponsored by different brands.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, let's talk about your podcast, because obviously that's a great resource.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it for, I'm working on the 225th episode today. And thanks. It's been 3.5 years, and it's just been such a journey. I call it Bartender Journey. I always say that was a perfect name, because when I started this thing, I didn't know how much I didn't know about bartending. You know, I had never heard of Tales of the Cocktail, which is the most famous event in our industry, and Dale DeGroff. And it was through the podcast that I just went through down this rabbit hole of trainings and education and distillery tours and all of these things.
Wow. It's
been extremely, it's funny to say, but the podcast changed my life, changed the trajectory of what my focus, you know. So it's, I mentioned I do a book of the week, I'll do a cocktail of the week, and then usually an interview with somebody in the industry, whether that be a bartender or a brand ambassador or a distiller. So yeah, there's a lot to learn.
What's the domain? What's the website? Just with a link here, Brian.
Yeah, it's bartenderjourney.net, or you can just search for Bartender Journey on however you get this podcast.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Just one last question for you then. What's a bartender's favorite cocktail? What's your favorite cocktail, Brian?
Manhattan, Negroni, those two probably. A classic daiquiri, if you ever heard of that.
No, I haven't. What is that one?
A daiquiri, before it was this frozen mess of syrupy stuff, is simply silver rum, lime juice, and simple syrup. And that's all it is. And if you shake that up in the proper proportions and strain it into a chilled coupe glass, it's the most delicious drink in the summertime especially. It's one of those drinks where, you know how a chef might ask a prospective cook to make an omelet for him? A bartender might ask to be made to make a classic daiquiri to show his skill and knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing your skill and knowledge with us today, Brian. It was really fun to speak with you and learn a little bit more about the craft. Pretty awesome stuff. Thanks, man.
Same here. Yeah. It was great to talk to you. And I'm a big fan of your show now, which I just discovered not very long ago. I've listened to most of the episodes.
Wow. And Brian, you've got a program where you can actually do some consulting with clubs. How do they get in touch with you or learn more about that?
Yeah, please send me an email. It's brian@bartenderjourney.net. Or you can go to bartenderjourney.net and use the contact page there. If you'd like to consult with me on a cocktail menu for your membership, I'd love to talk to you about it. And if you want to even bring me in to do staff trainings and figure out some cool spirits that we could put behind your back bar, obviously a wide range of things that we could do. But I'd love to talk to anybody who wants to get involved in a better cocktail program.
Awesome. Well, I definitely hope folks reach out to you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Gabe. It was a real pleasure.
All right, cool, man.
Cheers.
All right, so now it's 9:00 in the morning and I'm thirsty. I don't know about you. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait until the day is done. Thanks, Brian, for that. Hope you enjoyed this one like I did. And I hope to see you back here next week on another edition of Private Club Radio. I'm off to Michigan. I'll see you next week. Until then, here's to your membership success.